Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week is part 2 of my chat with Hedley Knights of We Fix Space Junk and Battlebird Productions. Now, continuing on from part 1, we speak a little bit about audio dramas and what Hedley kind of found was sort of the most unexpected thing about audio dramas and creating one. But then we get onto a whole mass of other things, and we talk about movies for a while, and sort of the differences between audio drama and movies. And then we get onto, a whole nother mess of things. And we speak about politics, including toxic masculinity, feminism, LGBTQ community. We talk about racism, Black Lives Matter, a lot of the more grey areas, understanding antisocial behaviour, affirmative action. We talk about Star Trek, freedom of speech, stereotypes, and then at the end we kind of loop back around and talk about Marilyn's Diary, which is a mini-series of We Fix Space Junk, and as with all the other We Fix Space Junk releases, it's fantastic. Now, a quick reminder that I was on the Comedy Geek podcast recently. I believe it's episode 11, and it's called Our Sketchiest Episode Yet. It's myself and many other podcasters. We feature on there, talk about our favourite sketches, so, go show those guys some love. And coming up next is a promo for the Casual Birder podcast. Any of you regular listeners may recognise that name, as I have mentioned the Casual Birder podcast a few times. It's a fantastic podcast, and the host of it, and basically creator and runner of the whole thing, is Susie, and she's absolutely fantastic as well. I've done a library event in Basingstoke with her, where we're trying to help people who aren't as tech savvy getting into podcasts, which... if any of you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or rather follow Genuine Chit-Chat on Twitter or Instagram, then you'll know that those sort of things, you'll kind of be familiar with those. And there's going to be some future events as well, which I'll end up doing with her and some more cross-promotional things. But yeah, fantastic podcast. Really recommend you guys check it out, especially as she's a friend of the show and a friend of mine. So that'll be there. And then after the promo, intro music will play as usual, and then we'll get straight into the conversation again. So, thanks as always for listening, guys. Anyone who reviews on iTunes or any of the other sort of apps, really appreciate it. It helps other people listen to the show. It gets it kind of, if it goes up the iTunes charts and things, then it means that it gets more exposure, and that means other people can listen as well, which helps my listeners, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you think it's worth it, if you take the time, even while you're doing it now, potentially, unless you're driving, please do it while you're driving. But if you're on the loo or you're doing chores or anything like that, if you feel like it deserves it, just pop a review on iTunes, and it really helps out. Otherwise, follow us on the usual places, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So yeah, thanks as always for listening, guys, and I'll be back at the end.
It's Susie here from the Casual Birder podcast. I love watching birds, whether it's those that visit my garden or ones that I see when travelling. Bird watching is a great pastime. It can be done with others or alone. You don't need expensive equipment, your eyes or ears are enough. And best of all, it doesn't need any great commitment. The Casual Birder does as much or as little birding as suits them. Join me each week to hear about the birds I've seen, interviews with others, and stories from listeners around the world. The Casual Birder podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton. What have you found is one of the biggest challenges that was unexpected for making an audio drama?
Time.
Yeah.
The time that it takes was the unexpected bit, because...
Could you say it on your Patreon, but for people who don't know at home, if you want to say how long it takes, they'd be surprised.
Potentially up to 60 hours.
And how long is each episode generally?
15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, so that is colossal. That's literally an episode, the length of an episode times 4 is 1 hour. So you're basically investing, it's 240 times. Every second you hear of that is 240 times that.
Thank you for putting that in perspective.
I'm really sorry.
No. I guess a minute can take up to 2 hours. Because in film, it's common for a minute to take an hour.
Well, I was going to relate it back to Avengers, for example. It's depending on the film. There's certain films which are I call them people movies, which is just the kind of dramas where there's no special effects really. Maybe someone gets killed or hit by a car at some point in the film, but generally it's all talking, and those things probably a lot easier. Whereas when you've got a fight scene, or Avengers, a good example, where there's 20 characters on screen, half of them are 25% CGI, 2 of them are pure CGI, so you have to have someone in the green suit. The backdrop is a planet exploding, so you need it to be in a green screen. There's got a fight scene going on, so you need choreography happening with another 5 cameras all doing other things. So every minute could take God knows how long.
Yeah,
but
weeks.
yeah, but with audio, obviously, you've got to do...
It's not quite as intense with CGI, but like even like with the, as you're saying, like kind of people movies, that even with those, like a minute takes an hour.
Yeah. Just
because you need to reshoot from every single camera change. I mean, like The Dark Knight, I think the average shot time is 2.5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's the average time before they cut to a different shot. And each of those shots involves moving all of the lights, all of the cameras, all of the sound equipment around to the other side of the actors, and potentially changing the makeup to be lit from that angle. So if it's two people having a conversation, the camera will be over one of their shoulders, and then they'll do the whole scene. Then they'll move around and do the whole other scene from the other direction. Then maybe you'll do one that's just cutting up from the side, or like a wide shot. And whereas like you get things called like multicam shows, like Friends and Fresh Prince and shows like that, where they have 3 cameras that are all filming at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they're basically filmed in front of a live audience.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've got one shooting in from like zooming in on faces, and then you've got one that's just a wide shot of the room. And yeah, you can kind of be economic like that, but with the movies it really doesn't work because you're in a real natural situation. All the cameras would get caught in the other backwards shot. Because, you know, if it was me and you talking and we were talking about like something really dramatic, like, I will find you. I will tell you the wrong order of Star Wars films. Then like the camera might be looking over my shoulder and what they call a dirty one shot. So it'd be a one shot because it's just one person, but it'd be dirty because it's got like my hair and my ear and my shoulder in it. Yeah. Just so that you can see, so the audience know who it is you're directing it to. So you're talking almost directly to the audience, but they know, oh, you're not looking down the camera, you're looking at this guy here.
Yeah, yeah.
And often they won't actually use the same actor. Like if it's, you know, Brad Pitt and George Clooney, who that shows you how up to date with popular culture I am. That's
I wouldn't know.
The first 2 actors I can think of. But if it was like, you know, Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr., the example is exactly the same.
Just read off all the actors just to make sure people know you're current.
Like Tony Stark's talking to Thor, you see kind of like blonde wig and a shoulder pad and thing. The chances that they've just paid Chris Hemsworth to be there just so Robert Downey Jr. can talk to him and his shoulder pad be in, very unlikely. They probably got body double in. So he's delivering the whole thing to the body double. Yeah. Just because it's just a bit of hair and it's a shoulder pad.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't really need to be there. But like you'd when it cuts to the other guy over Tony Stark's shoulder and you can see like the black hair and a bit of goatee and whatever, like you'd see the camera. Yeah. It'd be there. And also all the light, you'd see all the lights, you'd see all the...
And all the personnel, because if it's two people standing allegedly in the middle of a street, you know, there's got to be, either it's the street, you're in an actual street, or it's in a sort of Hollywood studio thing, but it's still, there's people, if you did a 360 shot, like there'd be people around you unless
it is really interesting trying to do 360 shots where you've got like a whole crew running like a hand on a clock. Yeah. Just trying to stay behind the camera at all times.
Yeah, that's what's
I did amazing. A short film. Actually, no, I did a feature film, indie feature film, about a year ago. And yeah, there was a shot where they were running they were like walking towards the camera in the woods. So the whole crew was walking backwards through the woods, and it was so hazardous. Like people going like the wrong side of a tree and then a cable getting caught. And,
oh man.
And like we managed to do a really good take. Everyone did really well. And right at the end, the sound recordist, I was the boom operator, sound recordist went the wrong side of the tree. I went in, the XLR got caught. I had to then like put the boom pole round there while we were recording and then tripped, fell, grabbed a tree, had the mic up, and I was literally almost on the floor with my legs up in the air, and I was just holding the mics just inches off the floor. The boom pole, and then like we got the scene and it got in the finished film.
That is amazing.
And everyone was just like, and cut. Well done. Good catch. A little round of applause. I'm like, thank you.
It's really interesting when you hear, especially with indie films and things, where there's certain times where with a big budget Hollywood movie, often there's a big, like, you've got a big budget, so it's like, oh, we've got enough money in case anything goes wrong, if this happens. There's one big scene with a lot of explosions we need to get in one go, these sort of things. But with indie films, it's like, I've got a vision for this and this and this to happen. I've only got a certain amount of time and money. We have to kind of cut corners isn't the right word, but be more creative and innovative of how we go about doing things. Because, I mean, fortunately with drones now, what's a great thing is that you can do such beautiful overhead shots of a horror film of the forest with just a drone footage with a GoPro.
Cranes and helicopters.
Like helicopter rides and do recording stuff, also the amount of all the sort of stuff that goes along with it. So that's one of the good things about like back with podcasting and stuff is like we're in a market, and music links into this as well. We're in a market where it's oversaturated because it's kind of the best thing and the crux at the same time, which is it's amazing. Anyone can make a podcast, but the problem is anyone can make a podcast. So you have to prove yourself being not better than anyone else, but worth listening to.
That's the thing. And I mean, there is a low bar to entry, which is amazing, which I think is why you see a lot more representation in podcasting than you do in other places. Like certainly in audio drama, it's really big on LGBTQ, on people of color, and like people's disabilities. There is so much, and it's much more representative of the real world than your average TV show. And you have shows that are like, this show is about gay people, and it's like, it's the gay people show. And it's like, yeah, but gay people are just kind of people. So,
you don't need to put all the focus on it purely about it.
I think Aziz Ansari says in Master of None,
I love that show.
It's just like, oh no, you can't have two Asians. Like, otherwise it's an Asian show. So like you were only now at the point where you can have two black people in a film without it being a black person film.
Yeah. It was like Black Panther. Like Black Panther, it's a great movie. And I saw that film and I was like, it's great. Social commentary is brilliant. But I saw online a lot of people going, oh, such a great thing for black culture because it's a black film because it's written by and all this sort of thing. And it's like, it's a really weird fine line, which us as white individuals, it's a very hot topic for us to put some of our views on in case coming off in the wrong way.
It is really interesting, and the response was very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think previously the de facto, like another thing people don't kind of understand so much, and it's quite understandable, where the definition of privilege is the fact that, we don't have any knowledge really of what it is that we have, what our benefits are. Like, because if we did, it really wouldn't be that privilege. It's the fact that you subconsciously, the way you see the world is from a different point of view.
Exactly.
And no one can see the world from every point of view. Like,
exactly.
Nobody can. But I saw a really interesting study. My friend is a researcher. She's doing research for the BBC at the moment. They've hired her to tell them about podcasting, about audio dramas and stuff like that. And she dug up lots and lots of statistics from various different studies. And one that keeps coming up is percentage of gender representation and how it's perceived. And there's this general perception that if there are 60%, I think if it's 60% men, generally speaking, people, when asked what the percentage was, they'll say it was 50-50.
Right.
And if it's 50-50, people will say there was much more women than there were men.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Huh. So when people say, oh, it's just like there's so many women in this, it's generally like, that's 50%.
Right, I see.
But if it's like 60 or 70% men, then they'll be like, so what do you think the gender divide was in this? Like, oh, probably about 50-50. And that's also men and women both see that, interestingly. Like,
that is very interesting, yeah.
Just because we're so primed to see that, and also to do with like racial divides as well, of people being like, what would you say kind of the percentages, and also if you ask the people like your local area, what do you think the percentage of white people to non-white people are? And often they'll be like, oh, like this area has lots and lots of Indian people, and it's like, actually, like you look at the numbers, it's like 5% of the population.
Yeah,
but it's because you're maybe used to 3%, and now it's doubled.
Comparatively.
And like people say, oh, you walk down the road and you can't hear people speaking English. And it's like, literally, I walked down the road and I heard two people not speaking English. Everyone else is speaking English, but you don't listen to it.
You don't pick up.
You don't pick up just normal things. Noise. It's background noise. So
exactly, yeah. That's a very good point.
And I think you end up in films, and you see a film that was written completely, essentially gender neutral, color neutral. But the assumption is it's a film about a white man, his white friends, a woman, and maybe a person of colour, just to throw him in as a token.
Well, that's it, yeah.
So, and that's kind of the basis. So as soon as you have like half the guys, half the cast are black and half the cast are white, then suddenly it's a race thing, because like they're black and then maybe the black guys will say, "Oh yeah, shit, man," that's like, and it's like, "Oh damn,"
yeah,
and like that's Are there people who speak like that? Yes. Is that representative? No.
That's the problem. It's that really weird, because we're in like a transitionary state at the moment in society and all the media, which is it's going in the right direction, but that's where you get a lot of this pushback from, where you get people, you get people complaining about snowflakes and the whole political correctness. It's like there are quite a few things, like there's a Kleenex man size thing which is going on at the moment, which is people complaining that Kleenex have tissues called man size rather than just being large. And it's like,
that was just a way of exploiting men in the 90s. And that's what that is. It was because they're like, who buys tissues? It's women buy tissues, men don't, but they still need to blow their nose and wipe their hands. But like, it's seen as a feminine thing to have tissues. So how do we exploit that male market? By calling them man size.
To make people manly and like justified in their
own.
Exactly.
And it's just like Yorkie chocolate bars. It's how do we get men to eat chocolate bars? Like, it's kind of like people actually see it as like, maybe at the time, people were saying like, oh, well, maybe asking guys, why aren't you eating chocolates and stuff? And it's like, well, it's girls like sweets and treats and chocolates and stuff. Like men were just like, I don't need that.
Yeah, with burgers.
Have a pie.
Burger on a pint, because like we love things that are only bitter. We don't like things that taste good.
So yeah, like, and things like Snickers, very heavily aimed at men. Even though, like, obviously there's no gender to chocolate. Like, it's completely ridiculous. And I think a lot of things that people don't get about like kind of feminism and toxic masculinity is, it is horrific. It's horrific towards men. Like, men suffer at the hands of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, so
much. And I think a lot of people think, oh well, this, that, and the other about men. Like, oh, it's just saying how bad men are. It's like, it's really not. It's saying like men are victims as much as women are.
Yeah,
like, in as much as they are victims of the perception of men and women.
Yeah, well, it's that whole, one of the things with it all I kind of look at with true equality is that, men, women, doesn't matter what your skin color is, anything like this. It's like everyone should be on an even playing field, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in every situation we're the same, which is where the lines get a bit blurred.
I think that can be get confusing, because then you're like, well, if we're really equal, then, how come
they get paternity leave and we go, I know that's changed a bit now. But
and it's just kind of like, well, exactly. But it's the fact that I saw an amazing clip from the BBC. I think it was Panorama or something from the 1960s. And it was people talking about equal wages. And it might have been older than that, actually, because I think they were talking about, and they were just interviewing like a man and a woman in a workplace and saying, do you think that this woman should be getting paid the same as you? And like, oh no, I don't think so. And then asking her like, well, I mean, I think it should. I mean, we do a lot of the same things, but I understand, like my bosses might think that I'm more likely to have a child, so I'll work less, so then I get paid less because of that. And it's just really weird to see like people were just honest, and like someone like a woman just talking about like, oh yeah, I think it's unfair because like we work for the same skills and we do the same thing, and like, and then just go to a man, it's like, what do you think? It's like, no. And it's just like, how can you say that? She's right there.
Yeah, I know.
And also, this is on television for everyone to see. So even if you are a bigot, surely you'd lie. Surely you'd lie and say that you don't. Like, but no, and like people, because why would you lie? And now I think people probably would be a little more. See, and I think you get echo chambers on the internet and stuff because
definitely
people feeling like they can't say things, and like people talking about freedom of speech, and it's like you have no idea what that means.
No,
like,
look, living in America or like most of Europe, basically in the Western world, it's like you can say basically anything apart from "I hate Muslims" or the N-word on your Facebook. You can say literally anything else.
Don't hate. Like that's the thing. People saying like freedom of speech is the same as being able to say whatever you want without any repercussions.
Yeah,
those are two different things.
No, it's like you won't get imprisoned by saying your opinion on a book.
Exactly. Like North Korea. If you said Kim Jong-il is like a piece of shit, you could literally be killed.
Yeah, exactly.
You would certainly go to jail.
Camp, like all your family and stuff.
The previous dictator, someone fell asleep during one of his like speeches and they got killed.
Yeah.
Falling asleep.
Falling asleep during a speech, you get killed. Yeah, that's madness. Exactly.
And like there was some British tourists in I can't remember where, like Dubai. Or something.
Oh, where they had sex on the beach.
They had sex on the beach and they were in prison for years.
Yeah, I think they managed to get out due to some sort of agreement between the embassies, but it's just
it's just like, and the thing is, like, you have to respect that different laws have different countries. Like, for example, if an English person who was 19 went to America and got really drunk, they could go to jail because it's illegal to drink over there. And just because it's legal in England doesn't mean it's legal in America.
Yeah, it's not unanimous.
They have different laws, and you kind of have to obey the law of where you are. But yeah, I mean, that's like being able to, like, if you say, even in China, if you say like things that they don't like, you go to jail. They don't have that freedom of speech.
Yeah.
We do have. I can say, Theresa May is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I hope she goes to hell.
Yeah.
Like that I don't get arrested for that.
No, nothing happens.
However, if I'm also free to say, like, I don't know, like, oh, you're wearing Star Wars clothes. Star Wars is shit, and you're a asshole, and I fuck you. Like, that doesn't mean I have this freedom of speech to say that. That doesn't mean you're not going to punch me in the face.
Yeah,
for
it
insulting
doesn't mean
me,
I'm
like.
going to tell everyone Hedley of We Fix Space Junk is bigoted or something. It's
exactly. It's just like you can't. Yeah, you can say what you want, and that's the thing. You can say racist things if you want. You're going to get repercussions of that.
Well,
You're going to get people saying you can't say that. Don't say that. Like that's
there's like social law and government law are two kind of oddly entwined things.
And just because it's not the same. Like actually putting hatred onto somebody and subjugating someone, and a lot of the time I think it's a lot of people don't understand the power of their words, and they don't understand what their words are based on, because like in that 60s thing where men and women just being like, oh yeah, well I mean women shouldn't really get paid as much, I don't think they're quite strong. I probably lift more I assume I'd lift more in the same amount of time without anything really to base it on, and that sounds fair to them because that's their understanding. But if you actually look at the numbers and say, actually, they're just as productive in this, that, and the other, then, and people say, oh, well, yeah, people can't take a joke. And it's like, yeah, but imagine you were part of a social group, a gender group, a racial group who have been victimized for months and years and decades and centuries. Yeah. And your joke isn't really a joke. Like, just because, like literally your great-great-great-grandparents may have owned their great-great-great-grandparents. Yeah. Like, literally, and kept them in the basement and kicked them if they were bad. And, like, if they died, they'd buy a new one. Yeah, exactly. Like that's, so your joke that was, oh, you can't take a joke. It's like, if you made fun of someone who you knew, like their family, like someone in their family just died, and you made jokes about it, it's like, oh, it's just a joke. Why can't you take a joke? You're like, that's heartless. Yeah, exactly. It's all at the moment, isn't it? It's like you can say, like a good example is the N word. Right now, obviously, we're both white, so it's just to clarify that before. But like if there was, if I was black and I said the N word to you, like, hey, what's up, my N word? It's like, okay, that's cool. But like, if it's the other way around and I say it to another person and they get offended, you can't say, oh, well, I've heard him say the N word before, and he's black, but he said it before and I should be able to say it. It's like, no, because there's situationally, not only is it you have to think about historical repercussions and also how an individual is going to take it. Like I've had black friends who openly say the N-word all the time, and they say to their white friends, you can call me the N-word, it's fine, no, I don't care. But you get other people who are like, no, because of the gravity of it's, well, even you walk down the street, if you want to be racist to someone who's black, that's the word you would shout, and it's like, when I was younger, you had that word shouted at me a lot. My father got beaten up while they were yelling that word. That word specifically really bothers me. I don't like people saying it. So it's like, and also one individual, people often, like historically, again and again and again, studies show like anecdotal evidence. We massively outweigh it. Yeah. So like if we see a statistic that says only 1 in 100 people do this, and we see one person doing the opposite, like, well, that person doesn't. It's like, well, yeah, that's that 1%. But we massively outweigh our personal experiences because, which is natural. Like we didn't evolve to read numbers on paper. Like we didn't, like we evolved to see things and learn from them. Like that person ate that berry and died. Maybe I shouldn't eat those berries. Exactly. It's not like, let's have 100 people do it and then we'll see whose stomachs can deal with that. It's like, and the thing is, maybe that person just like died of an unrelated thing. Maybe they ate like something this morning that killed them, but like you don't necessarily know. Exactly. But yeah, and like you like I grew up in North Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, for most of my early years. And it was very, very white area. And then moved to here, and like my school just in Harrow, like it was very, very multicultural. And very quickly I adapted to, everything changed when I moved down south. So I kind of took that as another thing that was different here. And like, oh yeah, that's cool. That people's accents are different, people's skin colors are different. Yeah, that's fine. Carry on with life, you know. But you know, from knowing people, then just like you could have a black person say the N-word and another black person turn around and say, "Don't you fucking say it?" Yeah,
exactly.
Because it's just like, and certainly a generational thing as well. Like young people listening to rap music and being kind of like, all right, the world is full of white role models. There's not really many black role models, but this rap artist is really cool, and he says this, and he's kind of like reclaiming that word, like the word queer, for example. It's like I still, even being like an active member, like an ally of the LGBTQ community, like I still find it a very odd word to say. Yeah. But people use that word to reclaim it, like because suddenly the word that was used to make you feel like shit, the word that was used to make you want to kill yourself, the word that was used to make you like mean nothing, to everything about you mean nothing. Like actually now I've used that word and I can reuse it and I can give myself power with that word. And it's like, it's quite amazing to be able to turn that kind of pejorative turn to turn something from a bad thing into a good thing. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that the people who mean it nastily aren't hurting you. Like exactly. maybe you can make it, maybe you can cushion the blow with it, but you're not going to stop it entirely. And I could totally understand, like, a couple of guys I work with who are like probably in their 60s and they're both gay. And they were talking about watching a show with a teenager coming out and like saying about how hard it is being gay, and they actually said like quite insensitive things, and they were like, "Oh, doesn't know he's been born. You know, it was illegal when I was growing up." Yeah, and it was like, wow, that's a massive sentence to hear someone say. Yeah, like, exactly. Because of course, coming out is going to be so hard, and the bullying and everything like that, and just like, but equally someone else, and like if this person was identifying as queer, those older chaps would be like, don't use that word. Yeah. Like, what the hell are you thinking? Individual basis. And that's the thing. What people as humans, what people want to do is they want to be able to have a universal rule for everything. They want it. There's some people who want, okay, well, my black friend is okay with me saying the N-word, so I want every black person to be okay with it. Yeah. There's some people, a good example of this is a word. This is, sorry for listeners if you hate this word, the word cunt. Like, a lot of people, especially I almost used that word earlier about Theresa May and decided not to. I'm glad someone said it.
Well, I've got other people on the podcast who probably have said it about her. So, but like with the word cunt, obviously, to me, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm desensitized to all swear words, but I know a lot of people, especially certain women, who hate that word. And it's like, I know you're one of them, but I wasn't trying to point that out, but you made that big laugh, so you made it yourself now, Megan. But like, there's some people who, because that word a lot of the time is associated with calling a woman that word and trying to make them feel small.
A difference in America as well. Like in America, it's much more of a sexist term. Yeah, yeah. Whereas I think here, I don't know. I mean, it is obviously a very gender charged word
because it's about like you call someone a dick,
and it is also like socially perceived currently at the moment as like one of the
biggest,
harshest, most degrading, most like the worst thing you call someone. Yeah. So for the worst thing you could possibly compare to someone to, it is literally the most scientific way of what makes a woman. Like, it's just like, that is, how degrading to women is that? Yeah. But I mean, equally, you call someone a dick or a knob or a cock or something like that. And it's not like they're on no male gender thing, but they're not as bad.
Call someone a dick is nowhere near as bad.
I feel like in America it's more of an aggressive term.
I think
like I went to America for a month and at no point do they hear.
No, I think if you say it in America, I think that is like you are actively, like it would be odd. I think it would be odd to call a man it. You'd more call a woman it to really degrade them, like kind of thing. And I don't know, it's a bit speaking to American people, but like certainly in American shows, if you do see someone call it something, it's like, I think House of Cards is one I really noticed it on in the first season, I think. Right. And the editor is talking to the female reporter, and he's like, stop being such a, and she goes, say it. No, so like, oh, you stop being such a cunt. Yeah. And like everyone kind of goes quiet, and it's just like, and the way he says it and the look in his eyes and it's just like, yeah, that is literally just like such a female hatred word. And it's just like, and a lot of people, I think when you say like, hating women, it's like, I don't hate women. It's like, no, but there is this deep, you don't think, oh, women, I hate them. It's just there's this thing there's this seed, there's this something, this thread in the tapestry that's making you up at the moment, and that thread is a thread of hatred, and I don't know where it comes from. There's been layers and layers and layers of people building this patriarchal kind of construct which hurts men as well, and I do stress that. Like, it's not like women are the only people who have problems, because I think that's whenever I talk to people about feminism and like women's rights, I think the instantly the first thing people always, who are maybe playing devil's advocate or whatever you might say, is, oh, but men have problems too. And it's like, yeah, but you can have conversations about women without men coming up. The fact that you try and talk about things women are suffering with, and you have to bring up men, is kind of the problem.
Well, Black Lives Matter is exactly the point of that, because Black Lives Matter happened, and then people went, yeah, but all lives matter. It's like, we're not saying they don't.
But the problem in America,
we're not saying that only Black Lives Matter. What we're saying is, at the moment in America, more so specifically, there's a lot of police brutality, and a high number of it is against black individuals. So you have to look at it and go, okay, why is this happening? Let's spread the knowledge of there's bad things happening to black people, so let's call it Black Lives Matter. It's not saying, okay, this is single-handedly the most important social issue ever. We need to drop every conceivable thing because every other race in the whole planet is doing perfectly fine. No, it's not. It's just saying, in this instance...
I happen to know white people have never had a problem ever. Are you white? Your life is perfect. And it's just like that's just asking for trouble, because, of course, every single human being in the world has problems, and everyone is... the victim of something.
Exactly.
Most of us are victims of capitalism, which is really barely talked about. It's talked about in light terms, but like we are all victims to things like wage slavery and stuff like that, whereby we are all doing ourselves down, doing each other down, purely for the profit of massive companies.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm not going to go on a massive conspiracy rant about the world's companies, but at the end of the day, we don't have as much free will as we might like to think, because you go to the shop, there's only certain things in that shop.
Yeah, exactly.
And like that is something that everyone suffers with. And so to say, white people don't have problems, not true at all. But to say Black Lives Matter, if you start saying, well, all lives matter, you're essentially saying Black lives don't matter.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Exactly. And people, it's as you say, like, people, they want the rule for everything, and they want... the good thing is when you point out is the whole like outlier thing, the anecdotal evidence, because the best example for it is smoking, right? Smoking, like I smoke, I want to clarify. I don't smoke very much anymore, exclude me, just clearing my throat, ironically. Hot vlog! I've been coughing up black tar into a bucket this whole interview. But like I smoke occasionally, normally when I drink and things like that, but I've cut it down a lot. But smoking does cause cancer. It's not, and you say that to someone, and someone who smokes a lot of the time, they go, no, because I had a granddad, he smoked 50 cigarettes a day, he's now like 85, and it's like, okay, you have got one example compared to the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are dying from cancer-related things due to smoking. And they go, yeah, well, I have another friend, they've never smoked a cigarette in their life, and they got lung cancer. It's like, yes, what happens is that there's
when you smoke, how probability works.
It's like smoking increases your chances of getting it. It is statistically shown if you smoke cigarettes, you're much higher at risk of dying from this and loads of other stuff. It's not saying if you smoke a cigarette, you're definitely going to die of lung cancer, and if you don't smoke, you're going to live forever. It's like people, they hear a big thing and they go, no, I know this one tiny outlier, and I'm going to hold on to this outlier.
The thing is, people go like, no, the oldest person in the country died last week. They died at 101, and they smoked cigarettes every single day. It's like most people who were born 101 years ago smoked. Most of those people are dead. He's like literally the last person alive who is 101 or whatever the age is. Yeah, and it's like, so the vast majority. I mean, equally you could go the other way. I always like to poke fun at. People say like, "Oh, the Romans used to do this." He's like, "Well, yeah, now they're dead." Look where I got them. It's just kind of the opposite.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because what I say to people with smoking is, I think people should be able to do what they want, and I think, well, if you want to smoke cigarettes and reduce your life expectancy, that's fine. And that sounded really sarcastic, like, but it's like that is how I feel.
Well, I mean, we all do things that are healthy and unhealthy for us.
Food's the big thing. I say to people, what triggers me is if you get someone who's really, really overweight, and then they criticize someone for smoking, and it's like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but it's like, you are both putting something in your mouth which is causing severe health problems and reducing your life expectancy.
I of the last week, I've eaten so much sugar. And that is really bad for me. I've just eaten like chocolate, I've eaten sweets, I've eaten popcorn, like sugary popcorn. And just for some reason this week, I've just really binged out on it.
Yeah.
And, like, regardless of how you deal with sugar, how you deal with fats or anything, how you deal with anything, like, it's not good for you. It does lower your life expectancy. Smoking is one. Drinking is one.
Drinking, drinking's such a big cultural thing as well.
Yes.
Not doing enough exercise. It's like you go deep into it, and it's like not eating enough fruit, not doing enough this, and it's like
not just being outside, being active for 30 minutes 5 times a week. Like the benefits of that are enormous. And
exactly.
And you do get statistics about like, oh well, not doing this or eating this much is the same amount as smoking this. Or at the end of the day, it's all just probability. You will always get people who do and don't suffer from things. It's like closing your eyes while driving.
Yeah,
it's like no one can argue that closing your eyes while driving is going to heighten your chances of crashing. But it doesn't mean it hasn't. Like I blinked driving. Everyone blinks driving.
Yeah,
like,
or sneeze
all the time.
for like a few seconds.
Sneeze. Yeah, and like I remember driving home last year from a really long day of work, a really long drive, and I was driving. I was really tired. I closed my eyes for probably like a whole second, like a long second, maybe a second and a half, and I was like, "Fuck, I need to pull over." And I pulled over and I rested. And I checked my phone, listened to some music, found a podcast, put it on, just had a rest. And it was a funny podcast, started laughing. And as I was laughing, I was kind of waking myself up a bit. And, after about half hour, I actually felt much more awake, but just the monotony of the driving kept me tired. So like, I closed my eyes for like a second and a half while driving. And that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Because, I could have died. Like, I don't know what the numbers are, but that doesn't mean I'm going to say to people, you can close your eyes while driving.
Exactly.
Because you don't die. Because
people use that excuse with a lot of things. Like, for example, there's people I know, and they've, with illicit drugs, like Class A's and things like that. Like, I know people who've been doing them for, like, doing coke, like, once a month for, like, 10 years or whatever. And then you talk to them about it. And once again, with this, it's their own life. They can do what they want. But it's like, they go, like, I've said, maybe you want to wind it down a bit or not do it as much just to enhance your lifespan or whatever. You don't know what's going to happen. It's like, well, nothing's bad's happened yet. And it's like, no, nothing has, and that's good. You should hold on to that. You should keep that by not doing any more. Maybe
that's the thing, and it's like the whole thing.
I can never die from
with anecdotal evidence. Like we learn from doing, we learn from our mistakes. We flinch from things because we've been hurt by things, and no one who is living right now has ever died.
Exactly.
Properly. Like maybe people have like died for a couple of seconds, been brought back, but like by definition, no one living right now has fully died. And that means that anecdotally, none of us have ever experienced anything that makes you personally die.
Yeah.
So like we don't have that flinch. We don't have that. It's like, oh, like thing like smoking while driving used to be a big thing of people like dropping cigarettes or dropping their lighter or something. And then, I'd like drop a bit of ash on you. Then you'd look up and you crashed and stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, I've never crashed and died from smoking in the car. I've never, been on the phone in the car and that distracted me and then I died because of it. So we always have this kind of, I ran across the road once with my eyes closed and no one ran me over. So that's presumably something that's healthy. Like you go to the extreme and people are like, oh, that's obvious. But the more subtle things, I think it's very easy to use your anecdotal. And another thing people use like in terms of like racism and sexism and stuff like that. And people be like, oh, like, some of the most racist people I've met have been black or something. And it's just like, shut up. Like, white people used to own black people.
Yeah, you can't get more racist than that. Literally owning another human, and we like took them from their native country, brought them over here, forced them to work, and owned them. And it's like, yeah, but there's black people racist too. It's like, yes, there's like the odd slave owner who was black. Like, but the reason you have to bring up the anecdote is because it's so rare. Yeah. You've got this one little thing like, to.
A black person once said, "Oh, white people are so annoying." It's like they are. They got a point. Like, and also, if you will always get this knockback effect. Yeah. So if you subjugate and like you are horrible to a sub society, they are going to get negative feelings. And this is a huge thing the hypocrisy in this country of people being like, Muslim people, the very vast minority of Muslim people get really angry at how white people treat them and then do an attack. Let's be more bad to Muslim people. Exactly. It's just like, I mean, I feel like you're just going to fan those flames, really. Like, it's just like, oh, like, these people came from Iraq to bomb the Twin Towers or whatever. And it's just like, let's drop more bombs on them. Like, that will definitely not help all of their propaganda.
Yeah, it's like ISIS are saying that the white man is coming over here from the Western world, killing all your crops, killing your family, and then telling us that we can't do what we want and we can't practice our religion. Okay, well, maybe I'll think about that. Next day, what happened to you, son? Oh, well, basically, my house got bombed and my entire farm has been set on fire and my family have all been killed by some soldiers that came about and were abusing power. What have you got left? Nothing. Do you want to join ISIS to fight the people who did this? Yes. It's like,
yeah, exactly. Who did this to you? English, French, American. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I probably do hate them now. And it's the same. Obviously, that's real oversimplification of the whole global thing. But
it is. There's a point. Like, it's like this kind of knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, I don't like this thing, so let's do another bad thing. And it's just like, you're really just, this is not the way to go about it.
No, it's trying to just be, people should be understanding of each other and trying to be like sympathetic more.
And also, like, I think another thing is that people don't get is understanding and forgiving are very different things. And not necessarily everything you understand you should forgive, and not everything you forgive you should necessarily understand.
Yeah.
But like, I think a huge thing is, like with criminals, a lot of people say, oh, you can't, like, it's ridiculous that this person would go free or something like that. And it's like, I think a lot of criminals should go to jail, but you should understand why they got to that situation. So like, you know, a lot of people who abuse people, and people trying to separate, like, dehumanize people. So saying like, oh, that person's a monster because he like hit his kid or something. And it's like, I think, what's the jail sentence? 5 years, whatever. Yeah, go to jail for 5 years. He go to jail for the correct amount of time because that's really, really wrong. But also, let's think, what happened in that guy's childhood? Was he hit by his parents? Now, that doesn't mean it's okay for him to hit his kids. That's still fucked up and it's still really wrong. And, you know, I'm not going to shake that guy's hand anytime soon.
Yeah.
But also, let's think, so now this kid here, who's just been hit, who we're also being sympathetic for, are we going to throw him in jail in 30 years when he hits his kid? Like,
exactly.
And just be like, oh, that monster. Like, you know, let's look at what's causing these problems. Let's look at, and it's the same with racism. And you see kind of like, oh, you know, back in my area, like, black people kept robbing the corner shop or whatever. And it's just like, in your area, do anyone give black people jobs? Are there, and you know, you kind of get this, like, just because this person, you know, robbing is wrong. You shouldn't do it. And those people, if they were caught, should have gone to jail, just the same as any other race, colour, creed. And that's where I think a lot of the problem comes. It's like, oh, you're being too kind. Like, you can't just be nice to these criminals. Like, I think everyone wants to go to jail. But let's think, why were they doing this? What were the problems that came before that? Was it generations of racism against this people and their family and growing up, and the fact that, like, oh yeah, but like we give jobs to anyone. It's like, yeah, but maybe you give jobs to the people who speak nicely and dress nicely, and maybe these people from this background are not used to that. Maybe they're used to being treated like criminals. They're used to being like treated like this, and people often become what they're treated like as well. Like,
exactly, and it's self-fulfilling prophecy in some way. You know, if someone's constantly telling you you're a bad person, you're going to steal, and if you don't steal, you're still getting punished for stealing, even though you haven't stole in this case. Why not? And then it's like, well, now I'm really poor, I've got no money. They all think I'm stealing anyway. Why don't I just do it? Because
and also
of that?
You can't, like, I can't get a job because, you know, and also like, oh yeah, we just hired the person who was best for the thing, and also like, I mean, I've very few times, but I have like picked crews for things. And if I have like a load of CVs in front of me and, you know, I've got multiple people who are all good for the job, I'll probably go for the person who I enjoyed the company of more in the interview. And like, if they're all fully qualified, they've all got like the exact same, that I think they could all do the job, I'll probably go for the one. I mean, I'm not saying 100%. I've only done this very couple of times, and quite a while ago as well. I'm probably going to say, you know, what's going to be better for the team cohesion? You know, am I going to go for the one who is a bit of a knob and up himself, and, you know, but he had the qualifications? Or am I going to go for the person who had the qualifications and was just like really friendly and really
humble and stuff, and willing to be
I think that's going to work really well. And I think that's a kind of normal hiring thing. I don't think that's abnormal in me saying that. But, if you then have a white person and a black person, and someone's like, I just got along with this person better. I think this person would be better for team cohesion. That's where you start getting this grey area. And that's where you get things like affirmative action. And people are like, well, making sure people of colour have jobs over white people, that's not equality. That's the opposite of equality. And it's like, but it's how else are we going to get past this social thing? And I'll be honest, the majority of my friends are white, and I didn't choose that. But like that's the social. You can, whatever reasons are, that is a fact. So, the chances are I might be more friendly, or maybe more used to being friends with a white person. So, if I was giving someone a job, would I do that? I'd like to think no, I would never would. But there are some people out there who definitely do favour white people. So, like, how are you going to get past that? So you do sometimes have to tip the other way. Yeah. To get it to the equal point.
Into the middle, exactly.
Because otherwise you end up with all these people like, oh, I was qualified for the job, didn't get it. Qualified for the job, didn't get it. Now I'm poor. Now my kids are poor. Now my family's poor. We need money. We need something. Like, what are you going to do? And that's not just with like black people, Asian people, people in minorities. It's also poor white people, working class white people.
Well, that's one of the things with poor white people as well. What happens is that's one of the reasons a lot of them, like the Trump phenomena, a lot of sort of the poor working class white people, they're hearing about this whole thing of, I'm not saying, hearing like these people in their minds hearing Black Lives Matter, white people are the devil. You hear these sorts of things, or white privilege and stuff, and you have someone who's been working their entire life, barely scraping by, can't get a good enough job, just can't, in a sense, catch a break. And then they're hearing in this stuff all over the media of like, air quote, the snowflakes and all these sorts of other things, and that white people get everything, and they're getting all riled up about it, and then they get annoyed at these other races and things. And it's like, I'm not saying that's valid. What I'm saying is, it's as you say with, one thing I've used a term before is it's understandable, but that doesn't mean it's excusable. And one example I use for that specifically is with my mum, right? Because basically what happened was my dad passed away several years ago, and I was listening to the podcast before. There's a whole podcast I did about this, and I spoke about that in depth, so I won't go into that any further. But that basically happened, and obviously myself and my mum were both grieving. But I was living with my mum at the time, and she was essentially awful. She wasn't helping me grieve. She was being a pain in the ass. She was snapping all the time. And it's one of those things where it's like, I understand that she was grieving, and that's fine. But the thing is that I was grieving, and I needed someone there to be able to help me deal with these things. So I understand why she was acting in that way, but that doesn't take all the blame away. Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of what a lot of these things are like, where it's like, sometimes
that black and white, that one answer, one solution for everything doesn't work in that situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you're either saying, no, how dare you say your mum shouldn't be grieving?
Yeah,
you should be there for her.
Yeah, exactly.
But equally, people need to be there for you.
Yeah, there's a balance. And it's as you say, with the whole thing of you mentioned of where like you push it one way and it goes the other way. I kind of feel like that with our political spectrum at the moment, where it's like, there is some political correctness going too far, I'd say progressive, too much of, the man-sized tissues, or not called like a manhole cover now being called a drainage cover, and all these weird little things that no one actually really cares about. No. And it's like,
and most of those things are drummed up by right-wing people who are just trying to move fast.
Exactly. And that's the problem. And it's like, well, some of these things, yes, if we want to get to a middle point, okay, and there's two people pushing this thing, right? There's a big stone. I'm bad with analogies, just to clarify, but I'm a very visual person. So say there's a big stone and it is too far to the right of this central point. Okay. You then need people to push more on the other side. If two people are pushing equally, the stone will not move. You have to have more people pushing in the opposite direction. So what's going to happen eventually is, with the whole political correctness thing, to use an example, there are going to be people who go way too over the top of political correctness. But what's going to happen is that's going to push the whole sort of social mind, in a sense, into the right sort of space. And then, some of it will be too far to this side, but also some people are going to say, oh, well, this other aspect of it is too far to the other side. And it's like, there's never going to be a time that everyone's going to be happy. We just have to kind of try and make everyone's experience as less shitty as possible. And in the meantime, everyone absorbs things in different ways. Everything is basically subjective, There's a couple of objective things, like rape is wrong. But like, for example, as you said earlier with the whole blame thing, one of the things linking to what you said basically is paedophilia. Now, I'm not condoning paedophilia in any way, shape or form. It is a heinous, disgusting thing. But you can't ignore the fact that the majority of people who have sexually abused children were sexually abused as children.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying if you sexually abuse a child and you've been sexually abused, you get off scot-free.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's not like...
They should... I think the only way around it is to be just as harsh on them as you should be, but also things like, I mean, in Germany, because there's a big thing actually in America of people, like, people haven't gone to the doctors and said, hi, I don't know how to say this. I'm just attracted to kids and I don't know what to do about it. I've never done anything about it.
Yeah.
And the doctor's saying, you're a fucking monster. You're disgusting. Get out of here.
Exactly.
It's like, what's that person going to go and do?
Well, yeah.
Like, either they're going to go and hate themselves about it and do nothing, or they're going to go and hate themselves about it and be a paedophile.
Exactly.
So you could have actually saved some kids' lives, or at least their emotional well-being for the rest of their lives, by dealing with it. I don't know how to deal with it.
Well, yeah, I want to clarify on this podcast, I'm not one with all the answers. It's more just a lot of these thought experiments. Even if it's this specific question, which has changed 100 times in this conversation, is like, there's not always the right answer, but not talking about it will solve nothing. You know, if me and you have this conversation, and say for argument's sake, 1,000 people hear this, right? If we use an isolated instance, obviously I'm not the only person talking about this issue, but say I was the only person on the planet who's ever spoken about this issue, 1,000 people are listening, and me and you can't figure out an answer. Well, the 1,000 people listening, maybe one of them just thinks about this question and poses it to their friends.
Yeah, and maybe someone thought that, like, and maybe someone disagrees with us, and that actually starts a really interesting conversation. That could be interesting. Or someone says, actually, I never really thought about it that way. And that maybe sparks a different conversation.
Exactly. And it's all just about sort of, one thing I always say is there are obviously bad ideas in the world, but also there are lots of good ideas. And you can't differentiate between the good and the bad ideas until you actually discuss the ideas, and it's where the problem with this world is that there's so many things fall in the grey area, and there's very little things that are actually black and white, and people want them to be, because obviously it's easier, especially in law, to have things black and white. But when so many things are in the grey area, and it's just
where do you draw that line?
Exactly. Where do you draw the line for all these things, you know, and where do you draw the line where blame comes in, you know? And
it's the classic, like, stealing a loaf of bread to feed your starving family. Like, it's a classic recurring theme in stories for centuries.
But Robin Hood's one of the most prolific things ever.
Robin Hood and Les Mis.
Yeah,
that's like the central point of that, and that's, you know, Les Mis isn't the first thing that I think it goes back into folklore of yore. And you know, in Robin Hood, there's no like, I don't think anyone thinks Robin Hood is the bad guy.
No.
He's the good guy, but he's a criminal. And and then it's things like also a big hypocrisy with like vigilantism of like the massive like kind of fetishism of superhero films.
Yeah, and Batman's
like,
a big one.
Yeah, like Batman is probably the most archetypal one.
Yeah.
And they are like, and like the later Avenger films start addressing it. They're kind of like, you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Like and depending on which cinematic universe you're in and stuff, like you're potentially murdering people, and you're attacking people, and you're bugging people, and you're breaking all of these laws because of what you personally think is right. And I think everyone kind of can relate to it in a sense when they feel like there's injustice in the world, because there is. Like, the penal system is broken, like the prison system is broken, there is corruption and all sorts of problems, but we can't just say, oh, I don't agree with that bit, so I'm not going to do that.
Just cherry pick what you want.
Exactly, because that's when you get things like racism and stuff like that, and like people saying, oh, well, like, how come that person's been in the country 5 minutes and they're getting seen before me? Yeah. It's like, that person has actually been in the country since the Windrush years. Yeah. And they actually did, like, their family fought in World War II for this country. So actually, they've not been here for 5 minutes. And they are much more ill than you, so they have to be seen first. So, like, people try and see the justice in it. Going back to audio dramas, actually.
Good segue.
And I think social issues are a really, really good thing. Like, so audio drama is a really good place for addressing social issues, because it has, again, this low bar of entry. And, you know, that does mean that anything gets diluted if it gets low bar of entry. You get things that aren't quite finished. You get things that are maybe not recorded that well or not acted that well. But, like, there are shows that are maybe don't have the best production, don't have the best acting, but they tell a really interesting story that just hasn't been told. And, like, a TV producer is not going to get behind.
Exactly. There's no risks. When you're your own thing, like with We Fix Space Junk, I mean, I think that's a good enough idea. It could easily be a Netflix show or multimedia franchise, but the thing is that pitching that to, say, a big company or whatever, they may tweak this. Oh, we don't really like this character. We don't like this bit. And what ends up happening a lot of the time is either they won't do your idea and they'll do something as bland anyway, or they'll change the bits to make your show so individual to create it. And a lot of the time, independent creators need a platform to be able to create how they want, when they want. And then once the idea is set in stone, like We Fix Space Junk, for example, if that got now that that's picking up traction, if someone did want to pick up for an animated Netflix series, for example, they would have to look at it and go, okay, you've already made this and you've already succeeded in this.
This is what people liked.
Exactly. Rather than you trying to pitch the idea first and being like, we think it would be like this, and having someone else input the ideas before you've put them in motion. It's always better, a lot of the time better with artists to do that. And you find that with music a lot of the time, where musical artists, the first 2 albums are genius, not unlike anything else ever, and by the time they get the 4th or 5th album, because the producer has something in hand,
and poppy and
exactly,
even sometimes from, like, if you hear a great unsigned band who've released EPs and they release an album and it's like, oh yeah, like the magic's gone, I don't know what it is, but exactly, and sometimes that can be sucked out. And I think the TV industry is, and I think that's a big thing about audio drama, is the fact that you can just have weird ideas, and you can have key elements that aren't part of the script. Like, because, again, having a gay person on a TV show, generally that's a plot point.
Yeah.
Generally it's, oh, but he's gay and he has to come out to his parents, and one of his parents is homophobic and one of them is accepting. And it's like, you could just be a gay person who is, has a job. And then the story is about something entirely unrelated.
Well, did you hear the thing about Star Trek? I think the new 3 Star Trek movies with Simon Pegg in them, Chris Pine, that sort of thing. The character it's Scotty, I think it is. Mr. Sulu, sorry. The one, I can't remember what actor he's playing. He's in Harold and Kumar and stuff, but it was George Takei's character in the old Star Trek, where he's gay in Star Trek, and in the 2nd or 3rd one, very brief, he gets off the ship and he runs and he hugs his husband and kisses their daughter and they walk off, and I think he mentions one line, like a throwaway line, somewhere in the film about his husband at home, and that's it. And there's no other mention of it. They don't make a big deal about it, and the film, and
that's the thing.
That's beautiful.
That is good. Really good, because that is what we need. We need normalization, and it's not, because also then you see, like, your people sitting at home who are victims of, say, classism, where, because like you got the upper class people and they look down on the middle class people, and the middle class people look down on the working class people, and who do the working class people look down on? Well, you can look down on the immigrant working class people, and who do they look down on? And there's everyone has something whoever they are, tabloid newspapers, whoever, are pointing them towards, like,
the scapegoat.
Blame them. Yeah, exactly, the scapegoat, because no one really wants you to think, oh wait, maybe so this government has made it cheaper for companies but more expensive for individuals.
Yeah, they're punishing people for benefit fraud, even though that is actually only a tiny percentage of the actual reason for us having little money, and it's actually the big loopholes in tax evasion from the companies that are drawing in billions of pounds a year. Yeah,
it's like, which should we go after? Yeah, we should definitely get that 0.1% of money from that, like, vast minority of people committing benefit fraud, and then it's supposed to lose millions and millions of pounds, like huge percentages. And like, those people sitting at home who are like, oh yeah, gay people have it so hard, and it's like, well, what about us? We have it hard. And then they see, like, a whole, like, oh, by the way, in the new Star Wars, I know, like, Luke Skywalker's gay, and then like, oh, he's gay now, and that's a big thing. And it's just like, that would be, everyone would hate it, and like, some people would be like, oh, this is really cool, but then other people would be like, no, this is terrible. This is exactly why, this is snowflakes and this, that, and the other. But yeah, you just have a character like that who's just in there, and it normalizes it. And that for that gay kid at home who's just like, looks at TV and every character is either straight or a massive stereotype. Yeah. Then, I know gay people who speak like someone from Queer Eye for the Straight Guy kind of thing.
Yeah, proper, overly flamboyant.
But equally, I know people who, like, you wouldn't know.
Well, exactly.
Like, I'm bisexual.
Okay, fair enough.
No one would particularly notice it.
No.
And, like, lots of people I know who you wouldn't notice at all. And some people, you really would. They're, like, so flamboyant. And so, but equally, it's like, and, not to say that those people who are flamboyant shouldn't be, but you have, when you look at the stereotypes you have and, like, the role models you have, what's going to happen? Like, it's society wanting to put, okay, so we're going to have gay people in this, but everyone has to know that they're like, oh my God, look at this. And then like, oh, we're going to have black people in, but they're going to have to say like, oh yeah, I love fried chicken and watermelons.
Yeah.
And you're going, oh shit, I'm too old for this shit. And like, oh, you've got to be this stereotype. And then, because that's what people are comfortable with. Yeah. And, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because because young people see that stereotype and say, well, I guess that's the one
who the
I'm
media
gonna,
sees us as.
exactly. And
that's why the white man sees all black people in this way, because in every bit of media that comes out, that's why it's such a big thing.
Exactly,
that's
like
Black
a
Panther
white
so
person, which Marvel, which Avenger do you want to be? And it's like, oh, I want to be Thor. No, I want to be Tony Stark. No, I want to be Bruce Hulk. Like, oh, you here, like point at a black, you're like, oh, which Avenger do you want to be? Yeah. And it's like, well, you've got the choice of one.
Yeah.
Or someone who doesn't look anything like you and doesn't have the same background as you and isn't treated the same as you. And it's just like, yeah, it's suddenly like,
and that's what the white privilege thing of people don't understand is just like, it's a very good point with the idol thing of just like, because there's a couple of podcasts I listen to which speak about social issues, and one's called In the Black, and it's the way they pitch it is 3 working class black people or black men who talk about social issues from a black perspective. And I really like it. They're really intelligent guys. They all have different opinions on things, so it's quite refreshing to get different perspectives on it. There's a lot of things they talk about which I hadn't even considered as I'm a 24-year-old white dude living in South Britain, and my parents had a fair amount of money. It wasn't like I'm not rich and I haven't got a lot of money now or anything, but they weren't struggling for the last 10 years of my dad's life.
So there's whole elements of like angles of life that you can't know.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And that means like no one should really blame you for not knowing it.
No.
But the fact that you've gone out of your way to learn,
well, that's what everyone should be.
Thing. And that's what a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think, oh, should I go find out something that I don't know? Because how do you look up something you don't know?
Exactly.
And that's why I think it's amazing to see little things like in that Star Trek, in audio dramas, you have loads of like gay characters, trans characters, like people of color who are like main characters, and it's not the plot line.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we need. We need more of the steady things. It's not a big deal because when you have the big spotlight on it, it points it all out, makes everything such a big deal. And then it's like, one thing that I've always said, is I'd like to have kids. If I have kids and they are gay, straight, bi, or whatever, I don't care. Okay, and I'll say this to them when they're young before this needs to be an issue, and I'll be like, if you want to come out as gay, if that makes you feel more comfortable, you're welcome to. Otherwise, just bring someone home and say, hey, mum and dad, this is Billy, or this is Sarah, or I don't care. It makes no difference to my life if they're male or female. So just it must be
what
normalised.
were your parents thinking when they called you Billy? That's a really terrible name.
Also, what was Mike thinking of the world's worst ad? Like, I couldn't think of any names apart from our names here, the 3 of us here.
If you try and think of anything, your mind will just go blank.
Well, yeah, it's like the phonetic alphabet. Like if anyone says, "Quick, think of a word beginning with K," and then you just forget every word.
Cat. No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've actually gone past the 2-hour mark quite nicely. So yeah, it's great. This is the thing I love about podcasts, especially one like mine. Like I like Joe Rogan's more than Scroobius Pip's, for example, where Scroobius Pip interviews people, but they're basically an hour long, and they are very much, oh cool, yeah, talk about that little tangent, and then when he can, he'll bring it back and he'll have like the questions, and I do like that. But this podcast is almost more for me. Like, you're a cool guy. I want to come up here and chat with you for, an hour or two just to get your views on things and to hear more about We Fix Space Junk. Some of the questions which aren't the questions I want to know because I'm a fan of the show. So, like, there's all these, there's no specific thing I do. And hopefully I'll come up again and speak with you and Beth and we can talk about We Fix Space Junk more. Yeah. But, so as we're coming to the end, I'll kind of wrap it up in a sec. But I did want to ask, out of interest, do you have, out of Marilyn's Diary, We Fix Space Junk 1 and so far of 2, do you have one that you liked producing the most or anything? Because, like, I will say, Marilyn's Diary, I know that it was, I think when I spoke to either yourself or Beth about it, it was going to start off as quite a small thing and it kind of grew a bit more. Yeah. And then the whole thing with, I'm not trying to, no sport. If you haven't seen Marilyn's Diary or listened to it rather, go check it out. But like the whole thing of Howard and Harrodson, like I think that the driving lessons bonus episode cracked us up. We were listening to that and laughing away. And it's like Marilyn's Diary, the whole deep questions about AI is like the way it goes into it is just so clever. So like, was there one that you generally preferred making or preferred listening to?
I think it's different for all the different elements of it. Like I think I really enjoyed recording Marilyn's Diary. We did it in a very short period of time because series 1 we recorded over months. Every single character came in separately and they all recorded against me or Beth and then we slotted them all together afterwards. But I mean, I think Beth and Becky, who plays Samantha, always had the most chemistry. They were together the most and chatting the most. But Marilyn's Diary, we had everyone in the same room. Well, I say everyone. Francesca and James Carney of The Unseen Hour, as both Harold and Haroldson.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had them in the same room and we did the whole recording over 2 days.
Oh, wow. Really? That's amazing.
Yeah. And we had James was only there for the one day, and then we did some bits that were just Fran for the second day. Like we purposely missed out bits which were just mainly her, and did those on the second day. And we got Jameson separately to do driving lessons.
Yeah.
which was heavily improvised, I have to say. Like, Beth did write a script for it, and that is mostly script, but massive credit to James Carney at the Unseen Hour, because his improvisation was hilarious. And there was just a lot of me on the headphones, just like, can you just say this for me? And like, how about this? And then this, and like, just so like, and then he'd say that and he'd riff off that for a while. And in the edit, it was very funny piecing that together and just trying to work out, I want to use all of this, but it would go on for too long.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's part of being the producer, though, isn't it?
And then Beth just kind of like doodling things down, passing them over, and just like, can you just say scorpions? and he's just like, yeah, I get you. Scorpions? And then that became like it made us laugh, so we just kept on doing it.
Yeah, because he kept saying scorpions. Then Haroldson is like, at one point, he's like, isn't there like, because Harold is basically trying to like get through things quite quickly, and Haroldsson's like, can we go back to the scorpions thing? Because like, maybe there's some scorpions on the ship.
Yeah, it's just like, there's a button that just says scorpions, and then later on, it's just like, I mean, even if you don't press the button, surely there are already scorpions here.
Yeah, it's like there's scorpions on the ship. Should we not do anything about it? It just gets glazed over.
Jettison cargo, jettison fuel. Is there a jettison scorpions? Never comes back to it. I mean, I think we may, in some other bonus episodes in the future, maybe mention scorpions again. just because it was
just for that was a cracker.
But yeah, equally, like, Marilyn's Diary was very low. Well, yeah, I mean, towards the end, there's more sound design elements, but it was quite a lot of just two people speaking, which I think is a lot of the beauty of it, because it was such a simple premise.
Yeah.
No like big adventures or story arcs particularly. It was just
character development. Talking
two characters who aren't human, who'd like to understand humans a bit more, talking about what it is to be human. And I think that's something people can relate to. Sci-fi is great for that. Is
definitely
I mean, even if you look at like X-Men, was always really about racism and how we treat people different from each other.
Exactly. Well, District 9, have you seen?
Yeah, District 9.
That's all about the whole thing of the white people essentially moving into
and Star
Africa.
Trek. You know, Star Trek was all about finding new people and respecting people's cultures.
When that had the first ever interracial kiss,
which was not supposed to be in it, which they got cut. It got cut.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, well, this is I don't know whether it's an urban myth, but there's the story behind it is that, there certainly was memo saying you've got to take that out. You can't have a white person, a black person kissing on TV. You had to take it out. And they did a retake and they recut it. And apparently, William Shatner switched the tapes.
Really?
And he switched them back to be the original take. And the original take was then sent out to the distributor, and they got masses of complaints.
Yeah.
But they got 10 times more fan mail. Like they got people saying this is amazing, like this is like groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And civil rights movements and stuff. And yeah, there was complaints, and there was angry words around the production studio and stuff. But you know, it made a change, and now that's not an unusual thing to see.
No, exactly. And that's what
it's not the most common thing to see ever. But I mean, like you look at Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, like, and that's the weird thing isn't that one of them's white and one of them's black. The weird thing is that they're both superheroes and they didn't realise. And then they do realise, and that completely changes the chemistry. And
exactly. And
it made a massive change, and you do have to annoy some people sometimes to make better change.
Yeah, well, some people are asshole bigots, and other people don't want changes.
And you know, sometimes again, like some people like don't like something. Maybe it's very easy to say you're a piece of shit for thinking this, but also it's just like, well, if you do see something and like there's a couple, we very rarely talk about romance in We Fix Space Junk.
Yeah, there's the sort of Jolt and
Jolt
thing a little bit.
Even there, that was intentionally designed to not be particularly a classic love interest story.
Yeah.
But I think there are the characters. I think it's generally perceived that most of the characters in it are probably vaguely bi in some way or another, just because it's the future. People are probably much more relaxed about that kind of thing, and therefore it doesn't come up.
Yeah.
But we never specifically mention it. Other podcasts do, like The Orphans, Iris, the Starship Iris is a really interesting one where the crew, their captain is Indian. They have a transgender member of crew. They have gay member of crew, or two gay members of crew. And it's like, it's none of those things are points. The story is about traveling through space. And I have seen a couple of people being like, oh, it's a shame you had to include so much like gay stuff. And it's like, well, maybe just take a step out of your life, look at other people's lives and think maybe not everything is aimed directly at you.
Well, I was going to say one point is essentially with, let's say use a gay kiss as an example, okay? Right. I am a heterosexual man, so watching two dudes make out doesn't do anything for me. And obviously, if I get a choice of watching two dudes furiously make out in front of me or nothing, I would rather generally see nothing. But here's a point that a lot of people which don't understand, which is you have to think about all the homosexuals watching normal shows and seeing a man and a woman kiss, and them feel almost the same way that you feel about seeing two guys kiss, but they have to see it in everything, and then you're complaining because for once you have to see the other way around.
And also, it's not, it has extra layers to it because when you see a gay kiss, you're like, oh, that's completely changed my, like, it's taken me out of the show maybe, or it's like, oh, that's something I'm not used to. I'm not seeing that as two people kissing. I'm very aware of the fact that that's a guy and that's a guy. But for every single heterosexual kiss a gay person sees, that is like, I don't feel that way.
Yeah,
I don't feel like
another
that.
one.
That's not me.
Yeah,
and it's just like that's just another.
And that takes them out of it. But
yeah,
that's
exactly.
Everything
and that's just another reminder of all of the problems that you've had to deal with in your life. Of,
exactly.
Yeah, like this isn't.
You're
this
still
isn't
not
right.
normal. Essentially,
I'm not normal. I'm not right. I'm not like this person. Like the protagonists were all supposed to want to like and be like.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that you don't necessarily consciously see people as role models, but they are. You know, you can't
influence you.
You look at TV, and that's how we see the norm. It's like, oh, it's normal to do this. It's normal to see that. It's like, do we see that in people or do we see that in TV?
Well, that's
which I think is the amazing thing about podcasting, because it allows you to see uncurated. You're not having to worry about the lowest common denominator. You don't have to worry about people just not liking it. Like, if people don't like our show, fair enough. Like, some people just like, oh, I'm not really a fan of sci-fi. I was like, you might not like the show then. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably more of a comedy than it is a sci-fi, and it's also a drama. So, have a go. But if it's not for you, don't worry, because and if you do it on primetime TV, that becomes an issue because
the producers and the numbers,
the sponsors and stuff, like the whole channel was run off of how many people will watch that advert. So if you want to make your show lowest common denominator, offend minimum amount of people, raise minimum amount of issues, like anything that could be seen as slightly, maybe there was a gay kiss in it and that maybe lowered the views a bit. Like, podcasting doesn't matter.
No,
people will love you and respect you more for doing what's you and what's
genuine,
and also, like, as you say, like, I love having my boundaries pushed, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable. I like being made to feel uncomfortable if it's something that can help me grow and something change my mind about something.
Exactly.
So maybe not change my mind, but I was thinking, like, for example, I grew up in a community which were very accepting of gay people and with a family who were very accepting of it, and so, like, that was always something I understood. I never really understood transgender people. Like, I mean, as in, I understood, oh yeah, cool.
The thoughts hadn't come in properly.
If that's what you want to do, I'm cool with it. I didn't quite get it. But then from hearing stories about it, hearing stories with protagonists or bit parts even who are trans and talking to trans people and kind of understanding, I now have a much better empathy and more understanding of what it means. And I think some of the things I used to think weren't quite right because I didn't know they weren't right because I didn't have any reason to know, but I pushed myself
perspective,
or was pushed in, like, I either was pushed or pushed myself into a situation where I learnt more, and that changed my opinion, and I'm really glad it did.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the beauty. And also with podcasts, another thing is it's about someone's passion. Like me with this, I try and have conversations with people who I think are going to be interesting, who I want to talk to. Well, if I do it for 10 years, okay, and it never gets off the ground in air quotes, and I can never make a job out of it, well, then after 10 years I can go, well, I met all these cool people, even if I stopped after 10 years for argument's sake, So, well, I spoke to all these cool people, I made loads of cool new friends, and because of all the people I've spoken to, I've had a lot of, there's numerous of just podcasts, I've only been doing it for a year, I've had my mind changed about loads of different things, and so, even if it doesn't bother anyone else, or I can never overtly make like a job out of it, it still changes me as an individual. It helps.
And you still have listeners. Even if you have like one listener, you could change that listener's life because
exactly,
like you've like, we're in a situation where we can make podcasts and not everyone can. And some you don't have the time or the resources or, the energy, but you maybe do have to listen to one. And then that can change your mind. Like of all the times you've had your mind changed, you may have changed hundreds, if not thousands of more. And yeah, like, I mean, I really enjoyed the video games episode of Genuine Chit-Chat.
Oh, yeah.
Some people maybe didn't. And like, there was a load of games that I really remember talking about. Some I really didn't. Some I looked up. And, you know, even when it went off on a tangent, not about games, I found that really interesting as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for listening. I appreciate that. But it's, and with, as I will start to wrap up as well, is, Again, but you're far too interesting, Hedley. So, and I travelled all this way. So, but yeah, and also with the podcast thing, what a lot of people do this is more of a podcaster complaint, really, because we're in a lot of the same podcasting groups and stuff on Facebook, and I find so many people number chase so much, and it does bother me because it makes people who have less numbers feel bad, like they're not achieving enough.
We do feel we are a bit conflicted, like sometimes, like because we want to announce something or we want to be kind of like celebrate something, but it's kind of like. It's not about numbers. No. It's about creating something that's good.
You should celebrate your milestone, though. If you have a big number, but some people post that every week, like, oh, I've been looking at my numbers. I get this one, and they check their numbers every day, and they obsess over it, and then they want to change part of their show over it, and constantly. And it's like, you're doing what the whole thing of the problem with networks and things are, which is you're looking at a week-by-week basis of something you're sharing on the internet. You know, what if your fan base, a lot of them, it's half-term this week, and the majority of people just didn't listen? Then you change a core element of your show.
People only listen on their way to school or something. And then, or they'll only work, or maybe when they're dropping the kids off at school.
Yeah.
And then it's half term, so they don't get any numbers, or maybe it coincided with something else, or maybe you forgot a hashtag, or maybe someone shared you one week, so that's boosted your sales, and no one did this week. So.
Exactly, and it can be all these sort of things, and people number chase and all sort of stuff. And my whole thing is,
until you get, I mean, to an extent, until you get over a certain number of listens, the randomness is just too much to.
Oh yeah, well, my episodes, I've had certain episodes which have had thousands of listens, and others which have only just passed like 100 or so. And it's not. I don't think it's because of the quality of the content, because there's no consistency. Some ones I released, 9 months ago when I didn't know the hashtags properly. I wasn't part of the Britpod scene. All these sort of little bits. And I wasn't as good at sharing on social media. I'd write gigantic chunks of things instead of more snappy things, or the other way around. And it's like, some people overanalyze, but the good thing with podcasting, I find, is the majority of people do things because they're passionate. And that's where the best work comes from, when people are truly passionate, not because they're necessarily trying to achieve a goal, because then they put too much pressure on themselves.
Because that's the thing, like me and Beth love We Fix Space Junk. We love it like a child.
Yeah.
And we love creating it, we love making it. And the fact that more than 30 people listened to it surprised us.
Yeah.
And then, like, when it, now it's at like, 60,000 listeners or something. It's just like, you actually can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
It's just like...
We think about how many people in a room. Like, that's what I say even with 30 people. People go, oh, I've only got 30 or 40 listeners to this. Like, yeah, but you have to think, like, you could fill up a classroom of people who are so interested in your show, they're willing to sit there and listen for hours on end, if they're subscribers or whatever, to something that you're putting out and creating. If you were a local at like a nearby, if you're like in a band and you went to a local pub and they said once a week you can get 40 people in here.
Yeah, that's a good turnout.
That's a really good, anyone who's been in a band, if you get 40 people to every show, you'd be stellar. And getting up to like 100 is not necessarily that difficult to do. But then when you get to like the people like, oh, I haven't even got 1,000, I only got 10,000. It's like you're comparing yourself to Joe Rogan, who's been doing at it for like 10 years with the biggest guest on the planet, with a whole studio.
You have totally different formats as well. Like for ours, like for example, for your show, you can drop in on any episode. And you can look for the titles that interest you the most. I mean, that's what I would do if I look at a podcast that's like non-fiction. I'll scroll down and say, that one looks interesting. And then I will get to the others. But I'll go for the ones that catch my eye first. And then if I like it, if I like the thing that looked interesting, then I'll probably like the rest of it. And then, whereas if I, a Netflix documentary series or something, I'm like, oh, that one looks interesting. Actually, it was boring. So I won't probably listen to more of that. So, whereas ours, you kind of have to start with the first episode.
Yeah.
And then you have to watch them in order. So if people don't like the first episode, and like the nature of it, the first couple of episodes are going to be your ropiest probably, because you didn't quite know what you were doing yet or whatever. You hadn't quite found your feet.
Also, even the story-wise hasn't kind of got the wheels turning. A lot of the time with stories, the thing you fall in love with is the characters and the build of that. Like Marilyn's Diary for me helped Marilyn as a character, and the whole thing of like Harold, as well as it talks about Dax, because he's obviously a computer as well. So it's like it adds depth to all the different characters the more you listen, and that's a lot of things I find as well.
Equally, also like it means. I guess, that obviously works against you because people have to start at the beginning, and if someone did drop in halfway through, they'd be very confused.
Exactly. So,
and also, people like maybe might be intimidating, like, oh, I've got to commit to all of these episodes potentially. But equally, if someone is in it, the chances are they're going to binge it and go through all of them. Whereas if it was a chat podcast, you might not get the binge.
Yeah, I don't really
either.
Well,
so
with my thing as well, I just get it where it's like, as you say, some people cherry pick episodes. And so I don't look at it as everyone. I even say at the start of my episodes now, I say, if you like the show, go check some other episodes out. Maybe subscribe and just see what comes up. But I'm not making every episode for every person. The video game one you came up with earlier, there's loads of people I know who love certain episodes of my podcast who have no interest in video games. So they just don't listen to that episode. And that's fine, you know?
And also the fact that, like, you know, people chasing numbers, it's number of clicks as opposed to number of minutes listened to.
Exactly.
Because also, like, you put in so many hours, whereas, like, for our trailer probably gets the same weighting as a 2-hour episode. So, like, this trailer has 1,000 listens or something. And it's like, that 2-hour episode has 1,000. So, like, a lot more effort and time went into that 2-hour episode than into a 5-minute trailer. So, and some people put trailers up for every episode. Some people put up stuff all the time. Like, so there's going to be an episode coming out tomorrow. A little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. So you got all these little bits that are just counting to numbers. And I mean, you know, sometimes advertisers want to know about numbers if you want to go down that road. I think with Space Junk, we won't ever do advertising in that sense. But we do Patreon.
Well, that's what I want to get into eventually. Once my listener base, I think, is up to a substantial enough level, and I can have
we
time
have
for
like
bonus content.
PayPal, so if people don't want to commit. And the thing is, I'd say it's never too soon. Yeah, because the worst case you do, you put it up and no one does anything.
Yeah, and then
if one person does, and you'll be surprised. Like, we were very surprised how quickly people joined in, because we were told like, you should have had a Patreon by now. It's like, we've only done like 3 episodes. Do a Patreon.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe do a Patreon. Okay, so we did, and like within a week we had like 2 $4 patrons.
Nice.
And I was like, wow. Like, I assumed that it would be like 2 $1 patrons after 2 months or something.
Yeah.
But like, no, and like, well, they'll probably give up after a month. It's like, they didn't, and now we've got 30 odd patrons.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, some people will drop out, and that's totally fine. I totally understand. And like, sometimes I will, like, if I see someone drop out and they've left a little message saying, I'm so sorry, I've just changed my job and I don't think I can. It's like, don't worry. Like, to be honest, if you want some of the bonus things, I'll send them to you. Like, thank you for supporting us. Like,
at all, like even showing appreciation.
Exactly. Had you just done a one-off payment on like PayPal and just said, here's £4, like that. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Like,
and you can hear how passionate you are about these things and everything like that. But so I'm going to wrap up now and finish this off.
Third time.
It's the third time. Let's see if we can make it.
You're probably trying to edit this smoothly. But,
no, I'm definitely not going to. I basically, the only edits I do is I cut out like coughs if there's a background noise a bit too much, or really long silences. I often shorten them.
Yeah, like when that moment where I just stared you down, like, and gave you evils for a full 5 minutes of silence. Just
after I said my opinion on something.
I can't believe you said that.
Yeah, oh no, it's so bad, but no one's ever going to hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, before I go, is there anything you want to just add, just to say about We Fix Space Junk, or anything at all?
I mean, I guess you've already heard enough about it already, probably, but I produce We Fix Space Junk with Beth Crane. We are Battlebird Productions. We've got a second podcast called Hembra, which is about it's female writers. It's just short stories. We're going to be at Pod UK, podcasting convention, in February in Birmingham. We're going to be doing a live episode, meet and greet. We'll be selling T-shirts and stuff like that. There's going to be some awesome podcasts there as well. And yeah, that's probably all for now. Check us out on Twitter. Twitter's the best way to find us. We're also on Tumblr and Facebook and such like.
Well, I'll put the appropriate links and stuff to We Fix Space Junk and all that sort of jazz in the episode description. Obviously, I do tweet about you guys occasionally because I think you're one of the best audio dramas out there.
Thank you so much.
And
I nominated you for best.
I saw that. I was well surprised. Thank you very much. I retweeted that, and I actually nominated you guys on that as well for the best audio drama, because I think you are, like, legit. Like, I've listened to Marvel's Wolverine, which I think is brilliant, but I honestly think yours is better. Like, I think I keep telling everyone to listen to it. Like, Megan can back me up on that. I keep going around.
I told my cousin to listen to it when we went to visit her for her birthday.
Yeah, so spreading the word, mate.
Spread the word, yeah. Well, yeah, follow us on Twitter, and yeah, if you have any questions that I haven't answered, or you heard the start of a tangent that I never finished, which there are many of, and do contact us. We're always chatting to people on Twitter, and never be afraid. No question too small or big.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great way to end. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Hedley. Appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thank you.
And that's the end of part 2. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. As I said at the start, if you feel like it deserves it, go on iTunes, give us a review. Also, if you enjoy Genuine Chit-Chat and you're subscribed and you want a little bit more, you could go on Instagram, follow us on there. Facebook, I generally just I occasionally post movie reviews and the new episodes along with the 30-second snippets that I normally do. Twitter, it's a bit more it's announcing new episodes and a few other things as well as other podcasts is what they're doing. And then Instagram, I often have photos that go along with it. So, there's times where my friends talk about tattoos, so I take photos of their tattoos, or, there's other things as well. So it's like, I do have the 30-second snippets. So if you're unsure about an episode, just jump on there, just a little snippet, see if it's anything you fancy. Also, there's movie reviews that I put on there, as well as just general goings on in my life. I post on there like maybe once a day. It's not like every single day without fail. So it wouldn't be overloading your feed or anything. It would just be sort of when new episodes come out, as well as movie reviews and a few other things. So if that sounds interesting, come and follow me on Instagram at genuine_chitchat. Links are, I think, in the description and should be in most pod apps and whatnot. Podcast apps. I'm too tired. It's late on a Sunday, so I can say at the end of the episode now because you've already listened. So it doesn't sound like it's kind of, putting myself down at the start, but. Yeah, anyway, enough of that sort of rambling. I've got one episode recorded with my friend TJ, who any long-term listeners, or who've been listening since the start, really. I did a travel podcast with her, which is the second episode. We talk about her travels. She went around Asia and that sort of thing. That was really interesting. This time, we just had a few drinks and just chatted nonsense, really, for an hour, so that was loads of fun. I think we've got plans for her to come back. We may be doing a Christmas episode, so we'll see about that. I've got one with Dr. Glenn Livingston about his book Never Binge Again. I've got a two-parter with my friend Junior, who has a clothing company. It's a bit more than that, but we get into those details, called We the Lifers. And then I've got a few Skype recordings loaded up in the pipeline. I should be doing one 2 days actually, so if those will go through, I'll have some of those to do as well. I'm hoping to do another political episode with Dom, potentially with Josh. I may do another Science But Simple soon. I think Josh and Reese, we spoke about doing another gaming one, so lots of things. And I've had a few people talk to me about sort of other guests as well for next year and more collaborations and whatnot, so it's exciting. I've been doing it for over a year now, so yeah, it's exciting time. That's about it, really. So thanks as always for tuning in, guys. I appreciate everyone listening, especially all the way to the end. And I'll talk to you all next week.